Welcome to ProCon, or welcome back to ProCon. For those of you who have had a chance, hopefully, to participate in some sessions along the way, we're really happy you're here. This is the online programming is here to stay, make it work for your community session. If that doesn't sound like what you were aiming for, nice seeing you, and you're invited to head back to the platform and figure out where you intended to go. But even if it wasn't and you'd like to stay, you're very welcome. I'm Gabe Most. I'm the Chief Experience Officer at JCC Association, and I'm joined in staffing today's call by my colleague Nick Tosh, also from the Experience Division. Please feel free to chat directly to us at any point if we can be helpful during the call. As I mentioned to some folks before we got started, we'd all love to see your faces. So to the extent you're comfortable turning on your camera, please do. I know the panelists would appreciate seeing who they're talking to, but no pressure, especially for those of you who are in places that it's not comfortable to do that. As you may have heard in other sessions, we're just so thrilled that this year's professional conference is provided no cost to JCCs and to you, the professionals. And we're grateful to the sponsors who made that possible, really through their generous support. And we hope that if you didn't have a chance on Tuesday, or even if you did, you'll head to the virtual vendor hall later today to say a quick hi and join us in thanking them for their support. And that's at 1:45 p.m. today after this session. And with that, on to online programming. For most JCCs, like the rest of the world, COVID was the impetus to begin online programming, or for some, ramp up what they already had. And of course, for most of us, for all of us, we're confronting these dilemmas about what do we continue, what becomes hybrid, what does that look like, and how best to navigate all these opportunities that we were, more or less forced to embrace, I would say. On that score, we're very privileged to learn from 3 JCC professionals today about their successes and challenges, and fortunate to have as moderator for this discussion, the founder and CEO of a particular platform that helps plan, monitor, and run engaging online programs of various kinds. Our moderator today is Dotan Tamir. He's co-founder and CEO of Clickto, which you'll hear more about later. There's Dotan. Of note, Clickto in 2020 was designated as a preferred virtual campaign platform by JCC Association of North America and the Foundation for Jewish Camp. Dotan also previously founded and was CEO of Big Idea. That's an Israeli tech summer camp company, which has been running partnership programs with JCC since 2016. So though he's not a professional at a JCC, he's certainly well steeped, and we're looking forward to hearing from him. Our 3 esteemed panelists today are first, Dena Lobel. She's a senior program director at the Hebrew Educational Society in Brooklyn. Hi, Dena. Brooklyn, New York. She was previously a longtime member of the JCC Maccabi team with over 15 years in the JCC field herself. She, as she told us earlier, doesn't sing, she said, but she's an outdoors person who enjoys a good adrenaline rush. James Sokol is Director of Adult Learning and Living Adult Learning and Living and Director of the National JCC Adult and Senior Alliance at the Osher Marin JCC in San Rafael, California. He previously worked in the worlds of opera, academia, international education reform, consumer products, and technology. That's it. And among other things, he teaches opera, Broadway, and music appreciation classes in the Bay Area. Marin Yafe is Chief Program Officer of the YM and YWHA of Washington Heights. Hi, Marin. And Inwood, and that's in northern Manhattan, for those who aren't familiar with those neighborhoods. He oversees programs and a full range of programs and a new center of Jewish life at the YM and YWHA. He's originally from Argentina and worked in Jewish communities of both Buenos Aires and Sydney, Australia. He is a cantorial soloist, so if we end early or people don't have questions, maybe a duet, James, Marin, something, everyone else can chime in too. That'll be great. We're really grateful to all 4 of you for your participation today, preparation, and certainly looking forward to learning from you. Format today, folks, is pretty straightforward. In just a moment, I'll turn things over to Dotan to moderate, and he'll be in conversation with the panel. And then we'll open up for Q&A. When we get to Q&A, we'll use raise hand because it's nice to hear from you and the nuance of your questions. So you're welcome to chat them to us, but we'll probably like to call on you. And with that, I will turn things over to Dotan and the panel. It's all yours.
All right, thank you so much, Gabe. Hi, everyone. I'm very proud of being the moderator for this session. I'm joining you from Tel Aviv. So it's 7:36 p.m. here in Tel Aviv. And I know our panelists already, and they have amazing and really insightful stories to share. And I hope that everybody here, all the guests, will take away some interesting ideas, concepts, and things that they can learn from the experience, the joint experience of everybody here. So we'll start very quickly. Basically, almost every program at least tried to move online last spring. It was insane not to. But all of you on this panel have done more than just starting a Zoom room, right? So as an intro to this session, I'd like you to share in short about the efforts at your agency to leverage online or hybrid or virtual programming to successfully drive engagement, reach, or revenue. And then after that, we'll get deeper to the how and what you've learned. So let's start with you, Martin.
Thank you, Dotan, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be here. And thank you to JCCs for putting this together. Really, it's great that you were able to also find a way for us to convene despite the obstacles of COVID. So going straight into Dotan, what Dotan is asking us about, I think what I'm going to respond in terms of how we leverage our efforts is very similar to the majority of you, but I'll mention some of the key pieces anyway. We were basically a community center that did everything in person. So we pivoted the entire agency to an online platform, which we call the YWHA Home. We created a virtual summer experience, a summer camp experience virtually, which I'm going to talk about later, where Dotan himself played an important role. We spent a lot of time focusing on communication with families. We felt like families were going through a lot in their personal lives. So I think part of our efforts at our JCC were really focused on becoming that core and anchor organization in the community that would allow people to vent, to share with us how they were grieving, and to provide some social services that were key for them, like financial support. So this is not so much the online, but our ability to be able to reach out to them through a phone call or through some cash support or some educational programs allowed us to also become an interesting source of programming for them. For the younger families, we were able to actually offer some nice activities. For example, during New Year's, we realized that many little kids and parents were going to be alone, so we organized some New Year's activities for the little ones online, and that was really a cable connection to many of them. We ran our first in-person activity through social justice. So again, that was not virtual, but we did social distancing through social services on MLK Day, and that was a very big draw for people. I would say that another component that was important in our outreach had to do with philanthropy. We received a lot of support from Federation here in New York to be able to run virtual programs, and that helped us also reach out families, not only through social services, but also through programming. When I'm going to talk about later on our summer camp experience that was virtual, a lot of it happened thanks to philanthropy. So it was a very good opportunity to do that. Government funding was also important. I know that many JCCs have different streams of revenue. In our case, a lot of those streams come from government funding. And because we were well positioned, that allowed us to do a lot of the work that we needed to do to support our communities. And in the middle of this, as if that weren't enough, we were very lucky that just before COVID, a donor helped us create a Center for Jewish Life. So we created a whole new center with a professional that we hired to lead that endeavor virtually. So activities like having a Yom HaShoah, in which we convened all of the synagogues in the area virtually to be able to mourn and remember our Holocaust heroes together, that was something that we were only able to do because virtually we had already created the platforms to bring people together. So I'll leave, like Dotan said, the lessons learned for later, but these are some of the efforts that I wanted to mention.
Thanks, Martin. Dena, same question to you.
Of course, and again, I want to echo thank you guys so very much for giving me the opportunity to come and speak at ProCon this year. JCC Association is doing something wonderful here, ensuring that we all have this opportunity to connect. And thank you to my fellow panelists as well. Dotan nailed it on the head. I think our initial response at the Hebrew Educational Society was to throw everything virtual. And then I think we had a moment of clarity where we paused and we took some time and invested in polling our community, in understanding on a real level what our participants were looking for and what they needed. Of course, we went on the jump of assuming we know what they needed, right? We're a community center. We have been doing this for years. We know exactly what they want, and realized that there were challenges with what we thought and what they actually needed. And we paused and we really, again, took time to look at data. And compare that with programs and specialists and the incredible staff that we already had on team, and pairing those two pieces together alongside with creative solutions, programming incentives, programs that were designed to infuse certain things like Kahoot and geotagging. So you didn't feel alone in your programming, even though you were sitting in your living room by yourself, the engagement with other people was true and was there. So we found creative ways, which I look forward to sharing with you guys as we go further in this conversation.
Awesome, thanks. James.
Well, I want to start also by just echoing everybody else's appreciation for Gabe, Nick, the entire JCCA staff. I mean, this conference has been amazing. And the fact that it's brought over 3,000 of us together is really special. So hats off to all of you for the hard work. As Dotan mentioned, I created the National JCC Adult and Senior Alliance, which now has over 50 member organizations. And what I realized, honestly, was that, here I was sort of like everybody launching our programs locally. And in the San Francisco Bay Area, we have collaborated, a number of the JCCs have collaborated on various programs, sometimes all the JCCs together, sometimes, 2 or 3 of them. And so after launching virtually, I thought, well, wait a minute, why aren't we collaborating virtually? And so I reached out to some of my peers and said, hey, why don't we give this a try? And, it kind of took off from there, that all of a sudden I said, well, wait a minute, if we're doing it regionally, why can't we do it in the same time zone? So I reached down to San Diego and up to Portland and so on. Well, if we can do it, in our time zone, why not one time zone away? Anyway, y'all get the, how all of a sudden we went national. But what I realized very quickly was, listen, we all are trying to help each other. I think there's a great intention of, hey, here are programs, feel free to share them with your folks. And that's lovely. And I don't want to take away from that in any way. But I wanted to create something that was true partnership. And so what we do in the Alliance is we actually split the ticket income so that we're actually helping the other partners. And we're splitting 30 to 50% of the ticket income with the local partners. So we're helping them with, these sort of turnkey solutions to, cut and paste program, make it really easy, but they're also getting revenue. The flip side is by bringing everyone together, we're able to leverage that group income, if you will, and be able to pay our special guests, our Broadway stars, our opera stars, it's, concert pianists, a reasonable fee, something fair, which is helping them because most of them have had zero work for a year. And so it's leveraging, all of us together. Truly, it takes a village kind of thing. And I'll get into some other details about that later.
Yeah, we'll dive a little bit, because this is all very interesting and very different. Each story is very different. And I have to be sincere and say that as a long-time camp enthusiast, I'm easily related, I can easily relate to Martin's story about the virtual summer camp. And so Martin, your agency pivoted really quickly to create Camp in the Cloud. I say quickly, but I remember like every day was a big progress, and it took a few weeks that felt like we did so many things in such a short time. But it was called Camp in the Cloud in summer 2020, which we at Clickto were also very proud of partnering and enabling the technology for running it. So please share the biggest highlights of this program in terms of impact, engagement, but also would like to know a little bit of the challenges, and if we have a little bit more time, also the other programs that you spoke about. But let's focus on the Summer in the Cloud.
Sure. So the camp was called Summer in the Cloud, like Dotan mentioned, and just to share a little bit about what it was, we were in April still trying to figure out how to open our in-person day camp. Our day camp is already a collaboration of 3 JCCs, the Shames JCC, Riverdale, and us, the YWHA Washington Heights and Inwood. So it already is a consortium of organizations. When we realized that it was not going to be, at least in our eyes, prudent to open a day camp, given where we were with COVID, a group of 18 JCCs in New York came together and said, let's try to do something unique and different. Let's try to show our community in a historical moment that we can come together and create something special. Out of the 18 JCCs, 3 of them took the lead, the 14th Street Y, the JCC Manhattan, and us, the Y Washington Heights and Inwood. And our incredible camp directors were able to put together a program that normally would take them a full year to craft in only a month and a half. And the challenge of this, just put yourself in their shoes for a moment, 3 different agencies, one which already runs its own consortium with 3 agencies as well, with 3 different cultures coming together to create one camp virtually that we had never done in only a month. So that meant sleepless nights for the executive staff, for the camp staff. It meant bringing together staff members that had very different views of what camp looked like. The discussion about which program should we add, which program should we not. So it was a very challenging component for us. And by that time, there was already a little bit of Zoom fatigue because many of our programs had already pivoted. So we had to work against that Zoom fatigue. So what I would say is that we needed 3 key elements to be able to make that happen. One, it was not going to be financially stable unless we had some philanthropy to support us. We were not sure about how many people would come. Would it be 1,000? Would it be only 20? We had no idea. So we were able to secure very generous funding from UJA Federation and JCRIF. Secondly, we needed buy-in from the families. So as I mentioned before, we spent a lot of time with our marketing staff, with our program directors, crafting each individual email, the timing of it, explaining where we were, a lot of honesty, and we got buy-in from the families. The third, we needed a good platform to do it. And that's where Clickto came to play an important role. Because if you run a day camp and the parents are required to stop every 45 minutes to type the Zoom link, you're distracting them from work and they're not going to send their kids up. So we needed a platform that would allow for the kids to be able to be independent and run their experience without the need for parental intervention on a regular basis. So Clickto created, again, in a very short period of time, a platform that created the experience per child for the whole week. So they would log in, the parents would help them early in the morning if they were little kids, and the entire day they would take them from one activity to the other. They could choose which activity to go to, but it was already set. What that meant is that in the back end of things, the camp directors needed to create the experience for each camper over the weekend in order for that to be clean. And of course, there were some bumps in the road. It was the first time that Clickto was doing it. We were kind of the guinea pigs. But overall, I would say it was a very successful experience because the parents were able to work, the kids were able to have fun. And some of the main takeaways that I would say is that first, it is possible to create communities virtually. If there was a little bit of apprehension around that, we were able to confirm that we can. Second, and probably one of the most impactful components of this, the staff, 3 different communities coming together as staff, they were able to also blend into a community. There were tears of sadness when the activity ended on the staff. There was a virtual party to celebrate them. And it was amazing to see what we were able to create virtually. Third, financially, thank God we had that funding because again, I can't say that we would have been able to make any profit or maybe break even had we not had received the financial support from the organizations. So it makes us think, do virtual platforms enable a significant amount of revenue for our organizations? I would say it depends on what type of activities. I just sent everybody a document a couple of minutes ago. Hopefully you're able to see it. The reason I wanted to share it with you is because we have very limited time here, but at our JCC, the programming team came together around a month and a half ago to discuss what were the lessons learned from COVID in terms of virtual engagement and what can we learn to implement once everything opens up again. And I'm not going to repeat everything that's in the document. That's for you to use. And if there's anything useful, please go ahead. But what I would say is we are not big proponents of modifying things from in-person to virtual. What we really think is the key lesson for us is there are elements of virtual that can enhance what we want to do in person. So for example, elements that have to do with registration and enrollment, parent orientations, staff meetings, professional development, being able to rely less on the physical space, data collection, in-person programs, organizing speaker series, all those areas, all of a sudden became something that we realized this is something we can do moving on forever. Intergenerational activities were also key aspects of the work that we were able to do. So I think more than the creation of new platforms that replace in-person, it's what are the elements from the virtual world can we bring to be able to enhance what we're already doing. So going back to the summer in the cloud activity, we learned, for example, that large groups don't work virtually. It's very difficult. So if we want to have a high quality program, we need smaller groups of kids to be interacting together. Otherwise, some of them are going to feel that they're not being paid attention to, that they can't interact. So it becomes cost prohibitive to have a high quality instructor with only 4 or 5 kids. But in the virtual world, in order for it to be successful, we need it to be smaller groups. When it's for adults and it's a lecture or a YWHA activity, then it's much easier. So there's a lot more that we can say about the lessons learned. But what I would say is Summer in the Cloud was a unique success because it allowed us to basically focus on collaboration. And that's the key element of this. Virtual, like James said before, allows for collaboration in ways that we had never thought about before. Imagine if we can collaborate in the most competitive market, which is camping, the sky is the limit in terms of what else we can do.
Thanks so much, Martin. I think I was very inspired by how you guys, 15 different JCCs, right? It was 15, came together to run a camp together. 18. And it made me think this whole, past summer, that, virtual summer camp, of course, if you can create a model of it that can generate revenue and it makes sense financially, if a virtual summer camp doesn't have to be available only at the summer of COVID, it can actually be something that can be offered every summer as an extension. Not all kids will go for 8 weeks at the JCC, but for a week here, a week there, they could actually join it from wherever they are for a few days, a few hours every day. Before we go to you, Dena, to you, James, just a note about the chat. So feel free to ask any questions in the chat because we're going to have a Q&A time at the end. And you can already start asking some questions. And if they're relevant for this specific moment, we'll just bring them in. And if you couldn't download the file, then Gabe and Nick, maybe you can text them directly and they can help or get your email and find a way to deliver this to you. So, so James, your agency created an integrated network to serve seniors in many communities, as you mentioned, not only your local JCCs, not even just the Bay Area, but the whole country or more than that. And we would love to know more about a little bit more, about how this great initiative is doing and what are the lessons that you learned and any advice that you have.
Sure. Well, and it's funny that you say, and maybe beyond, because we've actually had a few people from Israel. We've had actually one gal from China who stays up till midnight because she's a Broadway addict. A few people from Denmark have found our way. So our communities are expanding. Who knew? Well, first of all, just talking about impact, I'm thrilled. I get emails every week and sometimes after almost every program about how much the participants are enjoying them, how it's bringing joy and education into their lives during this really tough time. There have been a few who've talked about how in their communities, they love their JCCs and they do a lot, but that their JCC doesn't necessarily have access to these Broadway stars or opera stars or a great concert pianist or educational programs that are also fun. So that's been really thrilling. One guest I talk about, although admittedly it's hard for me to talk about, actually sent an email talking about being in the last stages of her life because she has a fatal disease, and that she wrote something to the effect of, I want to live for the next couple months just so I don't miss out on the programs. So wow. Now, that was very touching, but I'm going to speak directly to everyone here. We all do that. We may not know it, but we all do it. So just keep that in mind. Dotan, you had asked before about inclusion. And one thing that's been really exciting for us is that in our JCC, and I've already seen it with some of our other partner JCCs, that we've been able to expand our reach to people who couldn't come to our centers even before the pandemic. And there I'm really speaking of people who are limited by mobility, by transportation, and by geography. And I think we all struggle with that. And yet coming online, even when we open our doors, those people still won't be able to get to us. But our online programs allow us to reach out to them. And then of course, with the Alliance, we're offering these quality online programs so that my peers who run adult and senior programs can then focus on reopening their centers, on creating maybe really intimate online programs like, movie discussion groups, book discussion groups, and leave sort of the bigger programs to us. It takes them off their plate, but and creates time for something else. But they know that it's going to be a high quality. We've also launched I call it sort of a diversity and inclusion series called Songs of. It's a musical program with video clips and tidbits that follow a theme, usually holidays, but sometimes other themes as well. And the holidays are all over the map. Of course, we do the Jewish holidays. We did Songs of Freedom for Passover, Songs of Triumph and Victory for Purim. But we've done other things as well. Songs of Dreams for MLK Day. Of course, the I Had a Dream speech. Songs of the Moon for Lunar New Year. Songs of Women for International Women's Day. And upcoming, we have Songs of Peace for Buddha Day and Songs of the LGBTQ+ for Pride Month. And those are a way of, if someone in any of those communities see that we're offering those programs and they want to be a part of it, of course, they're welcome. Everybody's welcome. But it also serves on the other side to educate and engage people in our own communities about these other community groups. And so that feels good. And with each of them, part of my hope is that they'll inspire people to reflect about some of the deeper meanings of each of these celebrations and not just sit back from it, but how, sort of take stock of themselves and how they can make a difference. Vis-a-vis engagement, it's been really exciting because we've been able to see that we've been able to engage people on a more regular basis because, of course, of the online convenience. I mean, come on, when all you have to do is, sit at your desk and click a button and you're in, rather than, shower, get dressed, drive down, park. Oh my God, where am I going to park? Parking's an issue at our JCC, et cetera. All of a sudden they can click and be there and be wearing their jammies and holding a cup of coffee. I mean, what is not to love about that, right? They can come on if the program's only an hour and a half, they can come on easily. If they only have a half hour, they can come on for the first part. And so all of our online programmings have made it so much easier. And what I've learned from a number of our folks is that it also has encouraged people to take classes and expand into topics that they wouldn't have done otherwise. That they say, opera, really? I don't know about that. Now they're willing to say, you know what? I click a button, I'm there. If I don't like it, I'll click off. And so it's expanding their world as well, which I think is really exciting. One of my goals is to have all of our guests, because of course we have guests from all over the country, have them understand that the Alliance is made up of all of us, of our local JCCs. So I'm always encouraging my partners to pop in and into the chat, say, hey, it's Melanie from San Diego. Hi, Melanie. It's Melanie from San Diego. Welcome to my peeps. So glad you're here, whatever. That's a way of engagement. It's a way of having a presence. And then if she has to pop off and go do work, all good. And often people will thank me for the programs, and I'm constantly saying, I appreciate it. Make sure you thank your local JCC, because we're all together because of them. Because as I keep saying, we are all in this together. As for lessons, I'm not gonna lie, it's a ton of work. It really is, but it's all worth it. Customer service has taken on a very complicated dimension. Because of course, when you're online and doing through email rather than in person, there's a false sense of anonymity. And some people use that as permission to act out. Now, we've all dealt with difficult customers, right? Let's show of hands if you've dealt with a difficult customer, right? I mean, and those of you who aren't raising your hands, you're lying. I mean, come on, y'all, it's difficult. Online, it takes on a new dynamic. And especially sometimes when, the issue is their own fault. I mean, I had a woman who joined, thinking it was a mixology class, a cocktail class. It was an opera class. She didn't read the thing at all. And then of course wanted a refund. Excuse me? Anyway, it's been a real reminder about boundaries, making very clear what your policies are, what your procedures are, what your refund policy is, and stick to those boundaries. Also, we're all talking about hybrid and which way are we going to go. I think so far, and maybe I'll change on this, but currently online is online and in-person is in-person. And the reason I say that is because online takes a different focus, that you guys can experience it right here. If I'm doing this and I'm saying, hey, Becky, and hey, Karen, what are you eating over there? Et cetera. Dena, okay, you laughed at that one. Love it. If we're having that kind of engagement, that's very personal. If you see me doing, well, next up on the thing is thus and so, all of a sudden y'all feel disconnected, right? And I think we're in the community center connection business. We have to do this, right? So that's where I am. But understand that doing this is exhausting. It is exhausting. And so those of us who are hosting programs, we have to spend more time with self-care. That is key. So I'll leave it at that. And of course, anyone who has any questions, feel free to either type in the chat. Y'all can always contact me at my email. I'll put it into the chat as well. But Dotan, let me throw it back to you.
There are questions already, but we'll take it to Dena first, and then we'll open it up for the questions, because it doesn't seem like we're going to have time for the planned questions, but we'll see, because this is all very interesting. So Dena, your agency has been successfully navigating afternoon and other virtual programming. It would be great if you can share the philosophy of the virtual programming and what did it mean for your agency in terms of impact, engagement?
Of course. So personally, one of my mottos is yes and. I fully am averted. I stay away from no but. And we took a similar approach when it came to this transformation of virtual programming for our younger participants. And we took the term and the mindset of just because. And rather than it being prohibitive, as in just because we're virtual, we're no longer able to, we flipped it into an opportunity. And we looked at it as, now that we're virtual, we can reach new audiences. We can bring in a larger variety of skilled instructors. We can share new and creative programming. We were able to, again, engage beyond just our community. We found outreach to people who, as James indicated, for whatever their reason was, weren't finding themselves coming into our facilities. And we now were able to reach them in their living rooms through trial and error and a variety of things. Again, I similarly will add my email. You guys are welcome to reach out to me at any time to speak in more detail about these things, but things like sending boxes of programming materials ahead of time to families. So that family now didn't have to worry about finding the tools to participate in an engaging program. They had them at their fingertips because they registered and they showed commitment to the program. Thankfully, we were able to get some subsidized programs and fundings and grants for different communities. But we found success in these kind of things for our special needs community, our typical functioning community. It wasn't limited to one area where we found, again, there was just huge reward there. As I mentioned, we were able to bring in instructors who would not have been able to see us. We have consulting contracts with an amazing virtual artist in California who we never would have been able to offer those services to our children before. We have a young woman by the name of Jessica Gray. Anybody who's in the New York area, she's amazing. She was a Rockette and she toured with Sesame Street puppets, and she's amazing. And she came and did these how to build a puppet and engage with a puppet. So through virtual, we were teaching social skills and social dynamic and these real key social skills virtually. We just had to think creatively. And it also gave us an amazing opportunity to challenge our staff. We were able to turn to our staff and say, you know what, 9 to 5, you're a sports instructor. That's what you do. Now tell us what you love. Give us an idea. How can you take this virtually? Give us something that you're passionate about. And we found that by giving our staff that opportunity to help bring the ideas, to help engage and brainstorm with us, of course, myself and the technical team provided all the support to have it come into fruition, but it was an open conversation. And all of a sudden we had staff that was engaged and excited in ways that when a lot of other community centers and jobs in general and human beings were seeing this decline in mood and commitment to work, and we're all being pulled out back into the building, everybody's scared, and all of a sudden it was, oh, we can safely do these incredible things that we're passionate about. We also found, and James, you stole my line, I wrote it in notes, you don't have to come home from work, right? Our PAC committee, as a parent, you don't have to come home from work, race home, feed your child, take a shower, get dressed. Do you have childcare coverage? Race down to the JCC. You now clicked a button and you were part of our PAC committee and you were part of our engaging pieces. And I'll speak to it a little bit later, hopefully, if we get to the questions, but with our after school and our early childhood and some of these pieces, what we found was the idea of an open Zoom, where we offered programming on one Zoom link every single day for a certain period of time, and schedules were sent to families. And it was at your discretion. If your child, God bless, was having a temper tantrum and you couldn't log in for that 3, that's perfectly fine. It was what was accessible for your family and what resonated with your family. And of course, there was some intentional building on the programs, but at the same time, we very intentionally designed programming so whether you joined us for 1 day or 6 weeks, you were able to get something from the experience. So again, impact and engagement was tremendous for us. One of the great things that I'll speak to a little bit later as well is we took virtual programming and made it social. So we did scavenger hunts in the community where you were emailed and texted clues. So you and your family hit the community. And we had staff stationed at like a JCC or we're close to Kings Bay and Bensonhurst. So we don't tell them we hid in their front lawn. We used the synagogue across the street. We used the Shook. And as a family, you jumped in your car and you got to have this exciting experience and you passed other families along the way and you waved, and there was this, listen, we're all humans. Competitive nature is a thing. All of a sudden, it's like, oh my God, I saw the Shmuelis. I've got to be faster. And it became this great engaging piece that was social, virtual, and in person, but not intentionally in person. So we again just took a lot of chances, thought outside of the box, and have seen incredible success with engagement. And again, the philosophy of turn that just because into a good thing. Just because now we can, not now we can't, would be my takeaway for you guys. Don't be afraid to do that.
I think that's incredible and such a great message, and obviously, you were able to shine, and that was crucial then, and it shows a lot about what what you can do as an agency. Also, not when it's a pandemic one. So when we move forward. So everyone, all the guests here, please start asking some questions on the chat. But if one of you has your own story to share about something very unique that you did at your agency, in terms of virtual program or something that you're planning to do, and you want to bring it up and ask what we think about it, or if we have any idea on or tips, then that would be the right timing. And so while you are thinking about it and bringing up some questions, I want to share some of my experience here from this past year and things that I've learned. And I'm coming from the camp business, and we run camps here in Israel and pivoted online in the second week of March last spring. So it was really quick, and but we found that there was no good platform to have it all happen. And we had to use tons of different platforms or software pieces together, combine them together, handling hundreds of campers, hundreds of kids in many different groups, in small groups, and it was impossible. So that's when I founded, not only me, but me and a team of amazing people founded Clickto, which is a tech startup that started, as Martin mentioned, as a platform for virtual summer camps last summer. And when the dust of the summer set and we opened our eyes to see, all right, so what's the future of online? First of all, one thing that I believe in is that the future is actually hybrid. Now, when I say hybrid, and we had this discussion before, I think that hybrid means that every educational institution on the planet beyond 2021 cannot just offer in-person options, has to also offer online options. Doesn't mean that they are the same things, doesn't mean that every class now will be broadcasted online and in person. It means that there will also be an online option, an online course offered, or an online enrichment program offered. Why? Because this world, this is all accelerated. This is all accelerated during this past year, and your community, parents, kids, senior citizens, they would now, even when COVID is beyond us and things, hopefully it will be soon, they will have many options online. Maybe not at your JCC if you're not there. So they will look for options. They will look for their specific interest online and find what they're looking for online. So you as a JCC probably should also offer that online option. And there are many ways to do it. And I invite everybody who want to learn a little bit more about that to also meet me later at the virtual booth time of Clickto very soon, and I'll be there to answer and maybe schedule some more time to meet you in person, not in person, on one-on-one, and then give you some consultation. Well, let's see the questions. And if Gabe, do you want to help me here?
Happy to. Yeah, thanks everybody. And I'm trying to keep track as they're coming in. Let's do the first question came in about what you're charging. Let's do a lightning round and just sort of like a succinct answer to, are you charging for everything? Are you not charging? What percentage are you charging for in terms of your virtual online programming? Let's just do a quick lightning round. James?
I answered it in the chat.
Okay, great. Martin?
For the larger programs, we charge, if it's somewhere in the cloud, it was a couple of $100s. This year, luckily, we're going back to in-person camp. But for many of the virtual activities, we're offering them for free. Our JCC is located in a community of lower income families for the most part. So it's not a community that would mostly invest in expensive activities online. And no, we don't need people to be members to participate, as for the last question. But yeah, most of our activities that are virtual have been free.
Great. Dena, percentage that you charge for and percentage you don't?
Yeah, I'd say 30% is probably charged. We also do creatively offer at a donation. So if people would like to donate for the services they've received, there's the opportunity to, and we post that in a lot of our programs.
And if I may add,
yeah, please.
My point of view, I work with a lot of enrichment programs online, and the average that they charge these days is between $15 to $20 per class of an hour for kids enrichment. In smaller groups, usually it's up to 15 kids in a group.
So great. There were 3 questions about moving back to about hybrid and how you're imagining that going forward. And a couple of you touched on it already, but let's see if you have something else to add specifically about what are the plans, what are the discussions at your centers now and Dotan for about what that's going to look like, the sort of the balance between online and hybrid and how you're responding to folks saying, hey, we love being online, keep it, please. Let's go to Martin first in that one.
Thank you, Gabe. Repeating a little bit about what I said before, we feel like because of the type of community that we serve, in person is what we're going to always try to do, but we're going to incorporate, like I said before, and for those that have been able to open the document, it's really there, incorporate as many of the lessons learned from the virtual world to be able to enhance what we're doing. So we see it as an opportunity for intergenerational because some grandparents of our kids live in Florida and they might want to do a Shabbat activity with our kids here. So that's a nice thing that we have done and we're going to continue to do. We see it as mostly an opportunity for collaboration among different organizations. If there's a Yom HaShoah activity among different synagogues in the Y, that's going to be an opportunity for us to do things virtually. But we would not want to lose ever that focus on being in person as much as we can and to have that personal touch and knowing each one of our members, because then we just become one more of the screen organizations that they can contact and not contact. So I really see it as intergenerational collaboration, people from different geographical areas. And the last thing I'll say in relation to the question is, perhaps this might not come across on all of the JCCs, but in those that are located in lower income communities, it becomes a differentiator between those that have the means to have computers, Wi-Fi, et cetera, and those that might live cramped in a small apartment where there's only one computer. So there is an equity component when it comes to creating a lot of virtual programming. I know it's not the case of every neighborhood or every JCC, but that is something that in our case, it's something that's very sensitive.
James or Dena, do you have something else that you didn't mention already, or is in addition that sort of how strategically your centers are thinking about this issue, or in James, in your case, the Alliance?
After you, James, go ahead.
Okay, so we see it absolutely continuing for the reasons that I sort of previously mentioned, the reach, expanding the community, getting people there, et cetera, who couldn't do, again, I'll just repeat the, mobility, transportation, geography issues. That is so key. So expanding our inclusivity. So we really do see it going forward. I don't see an end to it, to be honest.
I agree. We've also found creative ways to integrate, right? Our food pantry is now a digital app. You're making your appointment digitally. And once a month, we host a cooking class where you can learn how to use the items from your food pantry in your home. So I think that there's always going to be this partnership. I think James nailed it on the head. We've been able to offer such a great, diverse platform of opportunities to learn, to engage, to explore safely. I want to say one of the things as an agency that we saw take off for revenue that we never expected was our music classes. Our music program thriving. We've now opened it back in person and families are like, oh, no, thank you. I'd like to continue learning in my pajamas in my living room. So we've now found our teachers are back and our instructors are back in the building, but all the programming is still happening virtually. It opens up a sense of security, I think. And in speaking with some of our participants, because we said, wait, we thought you'd flood when we opened. And they said, listen, I'm comfortable in these walls. Again, I can wear my pajamas. If I have to use the bathroom, I can get up in the middle of a lesson. Like there's nothing, this for me feels more personal because even though there's a screen in that person.
Dena, just maybe a quick yes or no from you and Martin. Are you doing them simultaneously of the teacher live and students in the room and someone at home? Or are they just, what's the, no.
So
just
our music lessons are one-on-one. We found that it was challenging to run in person and virtual simultaneously in the same room. So even if there's the same activity going on in the same space, we do have a designated teacher or instructor who's responsible for both so that attention can be felt. And otherwise we found initially that the online participants felt disengaged and they weren't being included in what was happening.
Right. Martine, anything different on your end in terms of, are you doing anything where it's a combination, it's actually hybrid, that there are students, there are people participating in the program in the room and live? No.
Only case was we're in some after school programs that we're offering at public schools, in which, you know, the schools allow for some students to be there and others not to. So in some of those cases, there were mixture, but it hasn't been that successful. We don't think that those are great learning experiences.
Dotan, anything on that and on the couple of questions we had about Zoom fatigue and that sort of category?
You know, what I answer when I'm asked about Zoom fatigue is that I think right now we're still not in a balanced world, right? We're still really a lot of the day we're still online, at least some of us. Here in Israel, we're in a bit better situation already, but I find myself still working on Zoom from morning to night. And I think that if we look a little bit to the future, not the near future, then people will start to get more in person. Kids will start to go back to school in person, in everywhere. And then getting that extra out of school or extra enrichment or extra program in the evening, in the afternoon, I don't think it will generate, you know, this continuing Zoom fatigue anymore. I think it would be much more natural. So that's my point of view.
Good. I know we had a question come through about virtual membership. Any of your centers considering that as an option for the future, and have they dismissed it potentially? Like, we're not going to do that?
We've considered package deals that, depending on the programs, if you'd like to sign up for an entire program, we can give you an online membership, and there's a little bit of a discount that comes with that.
Got it.
We haven't pulled the trigger yet, but it is in conversations currently.
Martine or James, anything different?
Yeah, we had talked about it, oh gosh, easily 6 months ago, but it came down to an issue of all the databases talking to each other. And it just became too complicated when we felt like we needed to get the programs out there and support the community and people. It might be something we go back to. We're not sure. Stay tuned.
Yeah, we're hoping to introduce a virtual membership, a virtual subscription, because we too have had a lot of people join us I'm at the JCC of Central New Jersey. I don't know how it's going to work out, but that's what we're planning to do going forward. Up to now, we've been doing mostly donations and so forth, which worked very well for us, but we wanted to translate it into subscription.
Thanks, Barbara. I know that I think we answered all the questions I saw in chat. I know there were a couple of points that folks might on the panel hope they might get back to. So maybe we'll pause a moment and see if there's something that Dotan or Dena or James or Martine wanted to get back to. And I also invite folks who are here participating to click on the raise hand. Be happy to call on you so you can ask a question live, or as someone offered before, actually share something that you're thinking about or doing locally that you haven't heard yet, because this is certainly a great forum to share more than just the four folks in the panel. So please take advantage. And while folks are doing that, anything you wanted to add earlier, folks in the panel, that we didn't have a chance?
I think one thing that I'll add that I think James touched on earlier is, as much as we are customer centric and as much as we are focused on ensuring that we are providing great services and customer service and programming, it's quintessential to ensure you're taking care of your staff through all of this. It's quintessential to make sure that your staff isn't getting burned out with the Zooms, that you're finding opportunities to show them that you appreciate them, to show them that they're important. Again, we gave them the opportunity to bring their ideas and their passions to the table, but making sure that they're continuing to feel energized and appreciated. And with their buy-in, you will be amazed at the incredible programming that'll be generated, because they feel appreciated and they feel valued and they feel like, oh, my agency cares enough about me to listen to what I have to say. And they send pizza to my house, and we did a comedy night and we all came together and laughed a lot. But making sure you take the time to make sure your staff knows they're appreciated through this as well.
You know, I would add, And I totally agree with you, Dena. When it comes to content, we're all sometimes it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. I think it's important that everything be high quality. I know I'm stating the obvious, but have a focus and then sort of expand in strategic ways. It always makes me think of pasta sauce, that when I was growing up, there were 3 jars of pasta sauce on the shelf at the grocery. And if you'd asked customers back then what they needed in a pasta sauce, they would have said marinara. They didn't know anything else. Now you go to the grocery store and you have what seems like aisles of pasta sauce, and with vodka and with, I don't know, basil and mushrooms and all sorts of stuff. And sometimes we do take a chance in programming and put out something that, with garlic, as Dane says, or with mushrooms, see if it sticks, but still high quality. Sometimes we have to teach people what they want. But just trying it once doesn't work. That's putting it on the shelf. And if they, grab it, great. And if they walk away, too bad. No. Have to do it for a few months and see what the reaction is. Get excited about the mushrooms, etc., and give it a fair chance. Then if it doesn't work, no problem. And that's one of the great things about online, is that we can do it easily and test those waters at, especially with the Alliance, sorry to plug it. But, you can do it at basically no cost. And so that's kind of nice.
We, thank you all. Dotan, I have a question. We are recording, although we can cut this out later, depending on what you say. If you're comfortable revealing like sort of intellectual property ideas, what's coming down the pike? What is Clickto thinking of that like, you're gonna, features you're working on and going to announce, which relates to this conversation of sort of what the future holds? Are there any elements that, putting Dotan on the spot, if you're not ready to announce them, that's fine, but we can also cut it out if you don't want to broadcast widely.
That's fine. So first of all, I think that we are just in the beginning of all this. We were thrown at it. We hadn't planned for it before. And if you asked any of us 2 years ago, if all those kind of programs can even happen online, we would be laughing. I didn't believe in online until March of last year, and now I'm running an online platform tech company. So we're just at the beginning, and I'm always trying to think, what's going to be, how it's going to look like in 3 years, in 5 years. And that's the biggest, that's what makes my life interesting every day, trying to think how is it going to look like. And I think first we are trying to solve the current challenges, the basic challenges. This is a complicated, complex operation. And, as everybody here mentioned, it's not just opening a Zoom room. It's way more than that. So we're trying to see all the pain points that organizers and program providers have and answer them one by one. Then when we are more or less there, we're gonna try and see how Clickto can help JCCs and other programs, streamline this in a much easier way to their customers, to their clients, and also enroll more, grow. What I think is that after we get over the basic pains, then everybody will be ready to kind of grow, because your community will not be limited to your neighborhood. Your community will be teachers from everywhere and learners from everywhere, and you can do more. You can focus on what you're really good at and grow and grow and grow. So, it might not be, we might not be there yet, but when I think 5 years from now, that's what I'm projecting.
All right, we're gonna gather together this full group. I took notes who's here, and we're gonna find out how those plans and predictions go. Any other final thoughts before I close us out here, Dotan or otherwise? Just really a thought, given that we're almost out of time? Anyone want to share something we didn't
I'll just say, Gabe, just 2 quick things. One, to me, these are resources, not necessarily directions. It's like when the phone was created or when the internet was created. You don't want to put everything there. It's not a direction necessarily. It's a resource that we can use to enhance what we're doing and maybe create new things. And the second quick thing, when I was very young in my Jewish professional career, I was always taught that the org chart goes all the way up to the directors, the managing directors, the CEO, the board, but above the board is the community. So whenever you're thinking about the org chart, remember that you're serving the community, and assessing the needs, wishes, desires, dreams, and aspirations of your community should be the guiding principle that allows you to think about what is good for them, what do they need, how can I support them, and if online is the way to go, then amazing, it's a great resource. If it isn't, there are other things, but it's always about thinking about the community, what their needs and dreams are, and that's when at least for us, what guides our decision-making process.
Anyone else have something to add?
That you're not in this alone. That one of those things, I think James is a perfect example of it. And that's what we're here to share with you, that you're not alone in this. And I can speak personally, brainstorming is one of my favorite things in the world to do. My emails are there, reach out. We're here to support each other through this. None of us are experts. We're here because we tried some things and they worked well, and we were blessed to be able to share them with you. But this is trial and error and working together to figure out what works and what's going to resonate. And as Martine said perfectly, these are not instructions and directions and marching orders. What works for our communities may not work for yours, but we encourage you to take the ideas that we're using and use it as either as a springboard for your ideas, or maybe it does work and maybe our communities are similar and it's worth giving a try. And as James said before, if it doesn't work, that's okay. This is such a unique time where non-for-profits almost get to act as startups. We can try, and if it doesn't work, it's not going to kill our agency. It's okay. We can try something else. So don't be afraid. You never know where your story is going to begin, and it's worth taking the shot.
And I'm just going to sort of end by saying, I do think online's here to stay, invest in it, but please, 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 I know I said it before, take care of yourself. It's exhausting. Schedule into your calendar some time for self-care, for time for rejuvenation. It's really important because I don't want anyone to burn out. Thanks y'all for coming.
Thanks. Dotan, anything else from you?
I spoke so much. I want to thank everybody, and would love to hear from everyone. I'll put my email now in the chat. Any question, any idea, any suggestion, or pains that you are suffering from when going online and trying online, or trying to figure out how to go online, or do something that is long-term now. And would love to see you guys in about 13 minutes at the virtual booth of Clickto. I'll be there.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So I will just disagree with something Dena said publicly, which is that you are experts, all of you in this room. And I'm as someone who doesn't work in a JCC day to day, I am deeply moved by the expertise among all of you in chat and otherwise on this panel. And I'm so grateful to the panelists, to Martine and Dena and James, and to Dotan for moderating, for the time you spent ahead and now, and how thoughtful and helpful you have been to this community. Grateful to everyone who joined us today for being here and for participating and for all that you do. Just so appreciative and grateful that I had the chance to learn with all of you. So thank you for being here. I echo Dotan's invitation to the virtual vendor hall coming up at 15 minutes. And I also want to make sure that you remember that if you have time at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific, the closing, what's called Movement Moment, the closing plenary of ProCon is coming up. And we hope you'll join us for at least a bit of it. It's exciting to be able to see everybody all together, or sort of be in that virtual space all together. So we hope you'll join us. Thank you again to our panelists and moderator, and wishing everyone a great rest of your day. And with that, we're concluded. Thanks, everyone.